next week is I usually try to remind everybody what the special event for Kids Comics Insider is in the upcoming week, and I'm pretty sure it's a lunch and learn, but I can't remember which topic it is next week. I'm sure it's something really good. Maybe I'm gonna go check. Let's see.
It's how to promote to a library.
Yes, that's what it is. It's the library market one. It's with Jason Poole. Okay, Jason Poole is a librarian in upstate New York who knows the comics and graphic novel market inside and out. He's been working with kids and YA graphic novels for decades, pretty much, and he is a well-known specialist in his region. He does talks for a lot of regional library systems about comics and graphic novels. And so he's going to be talking about how you as a creator should be approaching the library market, how to talk to librarians, how to connect with them, where do they hang out, how do you speak their language, all that stuff. So it's going to be really, really fun. And Jason's a great guy. So that's my announcement for next week. And so now I would love to open up the floor to who has a slice of life book that you would like to share?
I'll go first. It's kind of funny, we were talking about it last night in the Mark Siegel thing, but be prepared. I don't know. It's I got it on a recommendation from Kids Comic Unite, I think a few months ago when you asked for people to send recommendations and someone posted it. And so I picked it up and I thought I was going to read it in over a week. And I read it in a night. So it was just like a super quick, super fun read and stuff. So yeah, so there's mine.
Can you say like one sentence about what it's about?
A girl going away to summer camp, hoping to have the best time of her life, but having kind of the worst time of her life because she just doesn't feel she fits in there. Yeah. So, and just trying to make do with it and stuff and get through the 2 weeks and stuff.
Yeah. Perfect. Yes. That's a great description.
Yeah.
But Bethany has Be Prepared too. Are you here, Beth? Oh, there you are. Another one?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Lex.
Sure. So this one's mine. It's called Bix. It's by a cartoonist named Scott Chandler. And this one came out earlier this year. It's about, it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily middle grade. It's autobiographical though, and it's the life story of Bix Beiderbecke, who was a trumpeter in the 1920s. And what's really cool about this is it is virtually wordless. It's all pantomime. Chandler's a really good cartoonist. He kind of did it in this unique format. And there are moments when Bix is totally in his element as a jazz player, and the pages sort of explode like this. And then, but most of the book is kind of like this. Every now and then panels will sort of of his life, and more so, it's just terrific cartooning. So for those people who are interested in pantomime comics or wordless comics, I highly recommend it. BIX is the book.
Wow, who is the publisher of that?
Gallery 13.
Oh, okay.
I think they're an imprint of a larger publishing house. Simon and Schuster.
Yes,
so they're yeah.
Cool. I love that. Thank you. Another one?
I've got one. Can you see?
Yeah.
The illustrator is Emile Bravo. I don't know that Jean, somebody's from France, I believe. And we met him He gave a talk here in Chicago, which I didn't really understand hardly any of because it was at the Alliance Francaise. So all the French-speaking people turned up, and it was great. I really enjoyed hearing him, but I couldn't follow much of it. He had a lot of slides. But the interiors look a lot like this. You can see. And then also then like that. And I don't want to give anything away about this except to say it's about a family change. It's about a young boy named, I forgot his name, John. So it's kind of, I think, partially autobiographical.
Wow, that was
Fantastic.
really good, really, really good.
If you don't know his work, he's just an amazing cartoonist. He did some, I think he did a take on Spirou, and I don't know, just look him up. He's really good.
One thing I should say is when you do your book talk, after you're done, put the title and the author in the chat because I think everybody's really curious. Any others? There's got to be more.
I have one.
Okay.
So this my book I'm sharing is or not mine, but the one I'm sharing is Frazzled by Bookie Viva. It's like a hybrid middle schooler, and as the title says, the main character is Frazzled. This is the second in I think there are 3 books in the series. So kind of like in the nature of like Big Nate. It's very like kind of doodly. I was checking the author's site last week, and I guess she used to do a lot of like doodle journals of her daily life, and someone was like, hey, you could like turn that into something. So it's kind of that hybrid type model of illustrations integrated, but definitely kind of gets that feeling of anxiety of, the subtitle is like ordinary mishaps, inevitable catastrophes. So yeah, kind of very much slice of life in that for, and it's for middle grade.
Awesome. Okay, put that in the chat. That's great.
Will do.
Any others?
I've got one. It's a little on the older side. The Wild Kingdom by, who is it? Kevin Huzuega. It stars his character Glenn Ganges. The reason why I picked it up is that he's so good at like externalizing his musings. So this one's a little bit more conventional in his like storytelling style, but he does some large format books that really just like, he explores his insomnia, and he just does all these crazy formalistic tricks that I know we've kind of talked about, how to communicate stuff without the traditional plot oriented way. But this one is just such a nice little package. He goes on about his bird watching and stuff. But yeah, if you haven't encountered his stuff, it's really whimsical, but he's got lots of little nuances in it that are really interesting if you want to look at like how storytelling works visually.
Oh, that's fantastic. Put that in the chat. Anybody else?
I can go.
Okay. Oh, and then Carol. Okay, Josh and then Carol.
All right, so my choice is Tetris by Box Brown. It's put out by First Second. It is, if you are a detective, might have figured out, it is about Tetris, so the video game. So it's fascinating in that it's all about how it was created and how it became a hit, and the guy that created it. It was created by a guy in Russia who was very much in the, I guess either late 70s, early 80s, was very much under Soviet rule, and since he was created it in Russia as a Russian citizen, he did not own the rights to it. The Russian people and government owned Tetris. So it's about the Russian government putting it out into the world, and different video game makers being interested in it. And then it takes, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. And then about how eventually the fall of the Soviet bloc, and how he eventually gets his rights back to Tetris. And even if you don't like video games, it's just a fascinating story for something who you'd think a video game, but it's pretty great. So it's Tetris by Box Brown.
Awesome. Thank you. Carol.
Yeah. Hi. I've got Roller Girl, and I use this as a exemplar because there's nothing confusing about it. And it made me feel emotions at the same time. And I think I mentioned before, one of the things that startled me about it was I'm reading it on the exercise machine at the gym, and I start crying. So it really manages to make you feel things because you don't ever have to stop and wonder, where is my eye supposed to go next? What am I supposed to read next? So this book isn't anything like what I'm working on, but it's so dear to my heart because it is so good at what it does. Just love it and recommend it.
Awesome. Anybody else want to?
All right, I'll go.
Yeah.
I've got Relish by Lucy Nisley. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never heard anybody say it out loud. It's a story about Lucy Nisley has put out a lot of really good books, but Relish is kind of speaks to me because it's about her growing up with her family and her family troubles, but it's all kind of related to food and cooking. And in that, she also includes a lot of actual recipes that you can follow and make food. This is actually how I learned to make spaghetti carbonara. And it's really simple. Like the art flows really well. It's nice and colorful. But I love it mostly because it has actual recipes in it.
Any other people want to give a book shout out? Okay. Well, we should probably get moving into. Oh, Young, did you want to share one? You want to be the last one?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Actually, is it all right if I screen share this?
Sure.
Yeah, so let me see. Just gonna figure this out. So the book I want to share is Stargirl. Let's see. So I'm not sure if y'all heard, this is actually a novel, not a graphic novel, but it's by Jerry Spinelli, who's a very famous young adult author. And the book is basically about, a girl is a non-conforming type of whimsical girl, but in a very homogeneized kind of society of school. I really like this book. And the thing is, so Disney did make a film adaptation just last year on Disney Plus. You can see that. But the reason I want to bring this book up is because I actually really like the book. I read since middle school, and it really resonated with me. That inspired some of the characters I have for my own idea, kind of relating to nonconformity in high school and etc. Because it's very socialized. So to stand out, be yourself. That's kind of the message of the book. The interesting thing though is I did send an email to Jerry Spinelli, the author, like about 2 years ago, saying like, I'm interested in like doing some kind of adaptation, though I don't know if like the publishers are cool with that. Like, how would I go about that as a dreamer to like be a graphic novelist? And he said, yeah, like Disney has the rights to the adaptations and all that, but like he was really supportive of the other art I did. And I asked, like, he gave me his blessing to use it for portfolio purposes, like if I were to adapt for a graphic novel, because it's very common to adapt literature, like the Babysitters Club is a graphic novel now. So he kind of gave me his blessing, like, for not publishing, you can like do it for your portfolio. So I kind of started a little bit in my website. Let me see if I can get that here. Yeah, so this is kind of a work in progress of like if I were to make a Stargirl graphic novel. And I plan to do more pages because I had a whole scenario. I thumbnailed like a chapter and maybe like show that chapter in a PDF to like show, here's what I can do to adapt a written text, like an existing published book and adapt it in graphic novel form. So kind of like the Babysitters Club graphic novels. So that's kind of like my experience with Stargirl. And yeah, like it resonates to me that it inspires my own characters from my own stories. And I'd like to continue this kind of style of slice of life as a graphic novel. And hopefully maybe one day, if Disney doesn't own the rights, or if I find a publisher who works with Disney, I might adapt Stargirl, but that's like a dream ahead of time, but who knows. But yeah, that's what I want to share.
Awesome.
Thanks. How do I I'm gonna have to see the camera to see. Oh, there we go. Stop share. Thanks. Cool.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, now it's time for questions. Who wants to be really brave and ask the first question? Maybe I should ask, how has it been going with putting your stories into the 7-step story structure?
I mean, I could talk a little. I one thing I encountered was that I felt like steps 1 through 6 took place in basically the first third of my graphic novel, and then step 7 was pretty much the entire, like the other 2/3, like resolving those first 6. So I mean, I don't know if that's normal or if I'm misunderstanding. Pardon?
Could you do a screen share and show us your 7 steps?
Well, let's see. I have it. It's on, the homework is on KCI. Let's see if I could do that. I'm uncertain if I could do that via my what you call it. I'm on my iPad, so my technology is always a little wonky.
Oh, well, you know what? Maybe I can find it, and maybe I can share.
Yeah, I posted it just before the interview yesterday, just to.
Okay. All right, I'm looking for it right now. Let's see. Okay, I think I found it. Okay, I found it. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so you want to read it out loud, or should I read it? What do you think is better?
Oh, sure. I could read it.
Okay.
So, well, those 3 pages, that's for part 2. I broke down a little scene into 3 pages, but for the whole story, Khan always thought it was a harsh punishment, but he was just growing accustomed to his exile when suddenly the Court of Dragons invites him to a surprise wedding, his own. But because of this, he must undertake a quest on behalf of humans who have grown afraid of nature. And because of that, he'll have to collaborate with his estranged, adopted human brothers, Chen and Poole, until finally all 3 put their old conflicts aside and work together. And because of this, they discover they are part of a larger community of mentors and students who all have roles to play in improving a world gods and dragons need help with.
Okay. I feel a little bit confused in the part where you say, when suddenly the Court of Dragons invites him to a surprise wedding, his own. And because of this, he must undertake a quest on behalf of humans who've grown afraid of nature. So why does he have to undertake this quest because of the surprise wedding?
It's basically the wedding gift for his wife, who's who's a dragon that's arranging the whole thing on behalf of humans.
Okay. Hey, Rivka, can you help me out here? I feel like.
Yeah, I was trying to actually bring it back up, and you you stopped the share screen.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me? I can go back. I can share my screen again.
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
Great.
Actually, I found it. I
Okay.
found it. Yeah, I was just thinking about the way you opened it. Khan always thought it was a harsh punishment. That was confusing because it's not giving me a concrete right there. I'm wondering what is this punishment? What motivates Khan? Where does he come from? He's accustomed to his exile. Why was he exiled?
Yeah, I mean, he was exiled because he kind of he sought out an education that would make him not a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Oh, so Khan is a tiger.
Yeah, he's like the prince of all tigers.
Okay.
So
And
I
so
would actually start by saying something like that. Khan is the
so
Okay.
Khan is a tiger.
In
Who-
exile.
Khan is a tiger in exile, but
Mhm. He was just growing used to it until now the Court of Dragons wants to put him to use.
but the court of, I don't think you need to put he was growing used to it. That's not really a concrete, it's an emotional acceptance, but it's not an action within your script.
Okay.
It's not necessarily an event. So I would focus on events that happen within your script, especially in your opening. So Khan is a tiger who's growing used to his exile, but Dropout, he was growing used to it. What was it? The Court of Dragons.
I'm going to share my screen again, so this is easier for us. Sorry, I should.
But the Court of Dragons invites him to a surprise wedding, his own. So actually, we could do Khan. You can reword this however you want, but Khan.
Yeah. Okay.
Khan is
please,
a tiger
go on.
in exile, but the Court of Dragons invites him to surprise wedding, his own. When suddenly you can actually skip. I feel like the Court of Dragons invites him to a surprise wedding is not his when suddenly, it's his but. Because this
Okay.
is happening at the opening. And this is this something that happens like within the very first chapter? Like
The wedding invitation. I mean,
yeah. Or is it something that how are you kind of envisioning opening your story? Is it this sort of slow, gradual of like introducing the character, introducing his background, and then the invitation? Or is it something like it opens with an invitation from this Court of Dragons?
It actually opens with Khan rolling into town to find his brothers, and then stuff gets filled in from there. So he, the reader learns about his mission at around the same time that he informs his brothers amidst their acrimony. And then they have to, move on. They have to kind of move on to figure out why it is that humans have grown afraid of nature.
I think one piece of feedback that I would offer is that so when Rivka gave the lesson on Tuesday and showed us the example of Raina Telgemeier's smile broken down into the 7 steps, you could read that breakdown and you can completely understand. You don't feel like you're missing information in order to understand. But I feel like the way that you've written this, it seems like there's some missing information, so I can't quite understand. So I feel like that to me, that's where you need to focus, is making sure that the reader can read the 7 steps, and they're not going to feel like, oh, I'm missing some important plot element in order to understand it.
I have a question for Patrick. Do you know how this story ends?
Yes.
So number 6, and finally, that should really be your ending. I think maybe what you're doing is you're almost fleshing it out too much. Think really, really vague terms. Think of very concrete, but not like, you aren't trying to describe the whole opening scene here. I feel like you're kind of, your steps are too small. Think in larger steps. Think in opening, 1, 2, 3, that's your opening. 4, 5, that's your middle. 6 is your ending. And then 7 is sort of like the fallout from the ending, because there's always a little bit of fallout at the very end. Because often we know what our endings are, but we don't always know what the fallout is from our endings or how that has changed the character. So maybe think in that sort of arc, and that may help to make it more concrete. Because I agree, like Khan always thought it was a harsh punishment. That is, it was growing accustomed to his exile. The wording is a little. I like the other opening. Khan is a tiger in exile. That's very simple. That's very concrete. That and why is he in exile? It makes me ask, well, why is he in exile? And I like that sort of question that you put there. And there's a lot of different reasons why he could be in exile, but you don't need to say why he's in exile within this, because it could be anything.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I felt like I was kind of misunderstanding the homework as I was writing it, but I kind of just wanted to get to it and find out more concretely.
Well, the point of this is to think through it. So I like that though, because you're thinking through it. And I think you just, like you said, you feel like number 6, it's too early. I think you need to think a little further ahead, that you're pointing out too many steps. You need to simplify even more.
Yeah, I felt like I was just trying to fit those first, the but, like just grabbing the first one, right immediately. But I think I'll definitely rewrite that and post that.
It sounds to me like the thing that's really his big but, the thing that is the obstacle in front of him, is that, like you said, he's grown used to this punishment that he has, but he gets this invitation from the Court of Dragons. To me, that's your but. That is the hurdle. That's actually kind of a hurdle that he has to overcome, because it's at odds with his situation right now. This is changing the status quo. Think of what is the status quo, where is he right now, and then what challenges that status quo.
Excellent. I'll do that. Thanks.
Did anybody else have any suggestions or reactions or anything? Because I'm definitely happy to hear from the collective mind.
I do have a thought. It feels when I'm reading it, it feels a little bit like Patrick is writing a tease for a book rather than writing what would you call it, a synopsis of a book, leaving details out to get you interested. But what I understood the exercise to be was to explain everything that you can as succinctly as you can, and maybe the way around that is to think the person that is reading this knows absolutely nothing about this story. They know absolutely nothing. What do I need to tell them? What is the barest that I need to tell them for them to understand what this story is? Not in a way that makes them want to read it, but makes them understand it.
You told that way better than I did, Gibson. Is your name Gibson? I see Gibson Twist. Is that y'all's group name?
My pen name is Gibson Twist. Rory is Rory. Our group name is Giant Kitten Head.
Okay.
Thanks, Gibson. That was really clarifying.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to share your 7 steps?
I just had a comment. Yeah, I was wondering, because mine, I feel like similar to Patrick, I had like backstory, almost like a prologue. So would that be included in the 7 steps, or would the first step start where the action starts? In the present?
What would you say, Rebecca?
I would leave out prologues and backstory, because this is what's happening right now in this character's life. You can always talk about the prologue later in the story, but I would leave that out of your synopsis. So think about this is basically back cover copy is what it is. This is somebody's going to flip over the back of your book, but it's like the very last few are the parts that aren't on the back cover because it's revealing the end.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking that for Patrick, he might start then just the Khan goes in search of his brothers, because that's, he said, where the action starts. So maybe that's his first line, and then it helps get rid of.
Yeah, I like that. It doesn't. There's no perfect way to approach this. The whole point of the 7 steps is to help you think through your story. So there's really no right way to do it, as long as it helps you figure out your story.
Yeah, very helpful. It's given me a lot to think about. I feel like I have to just reapply those 7 steps. But that's kind of like what you were saying, Rivka, about you can apply it to a chapter or a small scene as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to chime in. If I found for my exercise, the 7 steps have been great to clarify character motivation. So I've been doing 7 steps for each character in the story, even though I may not share that with the audience. It helps me just figure out like how to weave them into the script, so the main character, so scenes play better in characterization. I can maybe pepper through, but it definitely helps just clarify the through line for me. So that's a great exercise.
I love that. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Rivka, when you gave the lesson. I mean, you can apply this 7 steps at a global level, and then you can apply it, like you said, scene by scene. You could apply it for characters. You can really do it. It's like the Swiss Army knife of plotting. I don't know. Would it be helpful? I actually, after the lesson, Rivka, I was working on another project, and I put together a 7 steps based on exactly what you did for another graphic novel that I'm working on. Should I
It's
share
so
it?
funny. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. You guys can give me feedback on. Okay, here it is. Okay, so here it is. Lucy moves to a new place with her family, and she's nervous about fitting in, when suddenly she meets a mouse come to life, which her dad fashioned out of clay to cheer her up. And because of this, she has a friend who keeps her spirits up. And because of this, she opens up to fellow outsider Olivia, until finally she realizes that she feels comfortable and happy in her new home. And because of this, realizes that being herself is the best way to make friends.
I love this. That's exactly kind of what I was. It's concrete and yet vague enough that you can fill in all the steps in between. It's clear actions are what's happening in here. You're not over explaining what's going on. These are the actions of this character's journey and their conclusion. And sort of the part of it too is I really like the part of, and because of this, it creates cause and effect. And stories are about cause and effect. And I think a lot of writers can get stuck sort of writing themselves in circles, not knowing where stuff goes. And by doing this, you always know where something's going. And so that's another purpose of this. And I can see where your story is going, Jana, in that because of it.
Honestly, I used that as a diagnostic tool because there was actually a little bit too much going on in the story. And so I used the 7 steps as a way to try to get at like what is the heart of this story and what is extraneous, and then maybe we don't need some of that subplotting that's going on.
Yeah, I think if your story gets overly complicated, if you're having a hard time just paring it down to that, your story might be too complicated. You might have too much going on in there, and it's tempting to throw all this stuff in there. And if you can't pare it down to a few simple words, you have to think, is this crucial to the story?
I would love for somebody else to share there. Who wants to share?
I can try sharing. I'm not sure how to do fancy things with my screen, so I might just have to read them off a.
Okay, you can read it
off a screen. Let's give me a second and bring it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. I don't know.
I'll share a story. I had a story I worked on for like 7 years while I was in New York, off and on. And it's funny, like I didn't have this sort of 7 steps of story structure. It was super convoluted. And I finally like went back and looked at it through that lens. And that's when I realized it was too complicated. Like I just dropped it because there was just too much going on. And I'd always wondered why what was wrong with that story. Like it had a lot of interesting characters, it had a lot of interesting visuals. It looked cool, but it was too much. I couldn't explain it to people because of that. And actually the 7 steps has helped me to rethink it and reapproach it hopefully someday and just get that really, really clarify the idea. It kind of runs it through a sieve and filters it.
Did you find it, Gibson?
I did. I'm going to read it now.
Okay.
Elizabeth Cochran is the orphaned daughter of a prominent 19th century judge living a modest life, helping to run her mother's boarding house in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But social norms and expectations about the roles of women clash with her headstrong, adventurous spirit and her desire for opportunities. Until one day, she reads an article in the local newspaper claiming that women are only good for domestic work, and she writes a reply, setting off with her best friend Meg to deliver it to the editor. And because of this, the editor of the newspaper is so impressed by an anonymous letter signed by a lonely orphan girl that he launches a public search for its author. And I have to scroll. And because of this, on their way to the newspaper, Elizabeth and Meg encounter a labor protest against robber baron H.C. Frick. Elizabeth and Meg hatch a plan to break into Frick's office to find incriminating evidence to force him to treat his workers more humanely. Until finally, after a calamitous slapstick effort to search Frick's office, Elizabeth and Meg are caught without finding their evidence, and Frick threatens them not to meddle in his affairs any further or risk being jailed. And because of this, Elizabeth reveals herself as the lonely orphan girl and accepts a reporting job with the newspaper to expose Frick and profiteering men like him, taking on the identity of Nellie Bly, stunt reporter. And that's it.
That was very clear. I like that. I could see the story unfolding in my head as you were describing it.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I feel it all makes sense.
And even though you had a lot of like exposition in it too, like actually like it wasn't short sentences, like you had a lot of, they did this and you added more, it was still very clear and very well thought out.
I can share mine.
Oh, yay, okay.
Try to screen share. Okay, can everyone see it? Yeah, okay, I'll read it. 10-year-old Maple loves her village of Numaria, but sometimes she feels that the town holds some secrets. Until one day, Maple and her friends notice a mysterious boat rowing towards the old church steeple that pokes out from beneath the Dover River. And because of this, Maple and her friends embark on a mission to find the identity of the woman. And because of this, the kids discover that the history of their town and their town heroine may not be what they thought. Until finally, Maple risks her life to continue the search alone because she believes it's her fate. And because of this, Maple learns how her own secrets put herself and others in danger.
I feel there's a few gaps in there, similar.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is you say, but sometimes she feels that the town holds some secrets. Until one day, Maple and her friends notice a mysterious boat. So it doesn't exactly make sense because she does feel that town has secrets, and then you say until she notices a mysterious boat. Which, you see how that like they don't exactly follow from each other?
Yeah.
Because if she feels that it has secrets, then she wouldn't be surprised that there's a mysterious boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I guess I just had some foreshadowing in the beginning with her feeling like maybe there's something we don't know, but the boat itself is a big surprise. Not,
okay.
So yeah, I guess the wording is a little unclear though.
And then Maple and her friends embark on a mission to find the identity of the women, but we don't know who the women are.
Oh, sorry, the woman on the boat.
The woman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
But you
There's
don't,
a
also
woman.
you don't tell us that there was a woman on the boat.
Okay, sorry. There's a mysterious woman on the boat.
So yeah, I guess part of the key to making this exercise work is that you have to imagine that if you're a person who knows nothing about the story and you read these 7 phrases or sentences, that it makes total sense. It has to make total sense.
Yeah, I feel like it's similar with Patrick. I feel like there's just so much information. So I guess I went the opposite way and pared it down so much that now it just doesn't, make sense to an outside. But yeah, I'll work on that. Thank you.
I think Rivka has something to say.
Yeah, and I put it in the chat too, but I realize you probably can't see the chat. I feel like number 2, your butt, is really more of an and.
Okay.
Because it adds to the story of Maple loving her village of New Moria. It actually kind of explains why she loves this village. And so what it does is it adds meaning and it adds depth to this love of her village.
Okay.
And then it makes the until one day kind of makes much more sense then.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Anyone else? Yes, Carol.
Hi. Let me see about sharing my screen. That didn't help. Where does it say? There it is. Okay. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So I'm here because I am concerned that I put a prologue in, even though it sets the stage, so to speak. I still have put this prologue in. So I ended up with an 8th step, and then I thought, okay, this is wrong. Let's go back. But I started out as Stage Fright produces plays at the Vocal Cord Theater, where he shines his light on the shows and characters. But his authority is dimmed by 4 players reluctant to be in the spotlight, until Stage Fright finally shines bright enough to encourage the 4 characters, Melisma, Grit, Compassion, and Dialogue, to come on stage and speak for themselves. And because of this, Melisma's story of being a banished siren unfolds. And because of this, Melisma learns to tempt humans with sweets instead of song, until finally she traps Grit, like from Hansel and Gretel and Brother, in the S'mores graham cracker gingerbread house. And because of this entrapment, Grit outwits Melisma and then returns with Brother to their home, only to be attacked. And then because of this, Grit returns to the gingerbread house to make it her own. And then I wrote fallout from the number 6 because that's a good thing to think about. So I would appreciate any
Stage
input.
Fright?
Stage Fright's a character that I used him in my little, let's see, that's Stage Fright. And he's a character that just begins the story by getting the characters out on the Vocal Cord Theater stage so that they can begin the story. So maybe all of that isn't necessary at all. And maybe I should start with Melisma's story of being a banished siren, because that's how the graphic novel actually starts. And I put my first text on KCI today, my first few sentences, 10 sentences.
I don't feel like you need to say number 4, actually, because Melisma's story of being a banished siren unfolds. That's not really concrete. That's not an event. It's not a specific event in the story. Like, this story is about the story of a banished siren unfolding.
Yeah.
So you don't need to actually put that in here because you're telling that story in here. Does that make sense?
No, sorry.
Hmm.
Try, could you say it a different
So I
way?
think you go until, so number 5, and because of this, Melisma learns to tempt humans with sweets instead of song.
Mhm.
I think I'm put it in a different way. Jenna, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, can you tell me in just a couple of sentences the story of Melisma, Carol?
Melisma is one of the sirens that was on the island when Odysseus rode past and had his ear plugged up. And I have always all my life wondered what happened when he rode right on by. And then what did the sirens think of this? Because they'd always been feasting easily. So my thought was that there were 3 sirens there and the 2 would blame the middle sister and kick her off the island. And that's how she becomes the witch in Hansel and Gretel, because she couldn't tempt her food source with songs and femme fatale. So she goes to, oh, let's do cooking. And so that's how she ends up being this witch in a gingerbread house. So that's Melisma. And then when she runs into Grit, that's more of a story.
So does your story start with Melisma being kicked away by her sisters?
It starts with back in the day, the Siren sisters were at the top of the food chain, and how they had a great time. So it starts that way, and then it runs into everything was going along just great until then we see Circe with the beeswax and having Odysseus's ears get plugged up.
Can I chime in, Jana?
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Everything you just said sounded really rad, but none of it was in your 7 steps.
You, I need these sorts of swamps on the heads. Yes, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I think I guess what you're going for is that stage fright is like the frame story.
Yeah.
But you don't really need that for the plot outline. The plot outline is what matters inside the frame, right? So yeah, I want to hear about. I love that idea of her getting kicked out because she failed to tempt Odysseus. I think that's great.
But of course, she was singing just like her sisters were, but they just decide they got to blame somebody. So they say, oh, it must be you because it wasn't me. And they kick her off the island. Yeah.
I also like the idea of a backstory for the witch in Hansel and Gretel. That's really interesting. But yeah, I agree with Katie. Like none of that is really clear from this.
Oh, thank you. It's so helpful to put myself out on the ledge like this. So. Yeah, I don't like one bit.
There's definitely, I read this and I have a lot of that. It creates more questions than answers. And what you just described just now gave me answers. Okay. So I wonder if you could even, like, after watching this replay, go back to how you described your story verbally to us, and maybe take parts of that and put that in here instead.
Okay.
Because I feel like it's a very convoluted story. So just kind of, it's just my personal feeling. There's a lot going on. And will your reader understand, are you going to have to describe all of that backstory to your readers? Or are you going to assume that your readers know all this backstory about Odysseus and the sirens and Greek mythology?
I'm showing the incident of Odysseus, and I'm using very, very ancient Grecian pottery kind of drawing within my own style, but using that to show people immediately, oh, this is Greece, this is mythology, this is like that world. So I'm not doing a big backstory about the Trojan War or anything. I just want, the only thing I need people to know is that Odysseus is a sailor and he's on this boat, and we even get to see the sirens eating and, you know, using the bones as batons and stuff. They're having a great time. But the point I'm trying to make is that I try to use visual cues instead of having to tell everybody the story of the Trojan War. Does that make sense?
So is this a metaphor, the story? Because you obviously have the word stage fright, grit, compassion, dialogue. It sounds like, what is the word for allegory?
No, it's not. It's actually, somebody said something like, you can tell truth in fiction, you know, one of those kind of ideas. So it's not a metaphor. It's both. It's both two stories about two different kinds of females that are, then they go head to head and what happens with them. So it's very action oriented. It's not a metaphor. It has, yeah.
So how are stage fright and melisma? It sounds like stage fright, this sounds like a modern world. Whereas the story you're telling me with melisma, ancient Greece, how do their stories intertwine?
What's fun for me is that I have used the theater framing, but I think because my story has a lot of really hard emotions in it, I like to give the reader a way, not out, but a reprieve maybe, so that you could set your hook on it. You could read it as just any old theater story, or you could read it as something that's on an emotional level. And I want it to work both ways.
When you say theater story, do you mean it's sort of supposed to be like a play?
Yeah, like well, no, it's not it's a play because for me in a graphic novel, the characters, nobody says she said, that, you know, they actually talk like they're on, like the panels are theater or screen, well, like animation. I posted pictures of the characters today and also my synopsis. So maybe that will help. I posted that just this afternoon.
Yeah, there are a lot of layers going on here.
Is this story mainly about stage fright or melisma?
It's not about stage fright at all. That's why I said when I first when I first said this, that I think I've done this wrong.
Yeah.
I put now, yeah.
When you do your number one, main character.
Yeah, down to
start with your main character.
Yeah.
So you actually want to start with melisma.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wanted to run that by you and make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I read this, I think stage fright is the main character, and that's where I get lost, because I'm getting sort of an introduction, and then you're introducing the main character. So I see now what your story is now that you've explained it to us. I feel like you don't need all this stuff about stage fright. That almost comes later. I want to know more about melisma. I want to know her motivation.
Okay. Thank you. Got it.
Can you, you'll stop sharing screen, right? Okay, great. I actually have to jump off right at 5:30 today. And we only have 2 minutes left. Does anybody have a last question that you wanted to ask, something that's been on your mind? Yes, Young?
Yeah, so sorry I haven't like shared my pitch yet, but basically I'll probably write the script and post it in the activity feed, but if I don't mind getting it reviewed, but I'll screen share, let's see if I can find it. I'll screen share the character I have here. Okay, there's my character. So her name's Anne Diane, and she's the main character of my graphic novels, The Intimidators. And the idea is that, so I wanted it to be like a long series, but of course you have to start with one book, and there's no guarantee it will be a series. But book one is essentially the exposition, almost like I'm following the story structure to come up with more ideas, but maybe I'd like some advice. Like, so if this were a series, the whole premise is that a bunch of outsiders like social outcasts would come together to start a club and then do interesting things together, like have fun adventures in school life. And book one is essentially like the recruitment of these members. So that's like the whole point of it. But I don't want the whole story just to be recruiting members, because there has to be something else, right? There has to be some kind of event or setting that will make it like, I guess, like make it interesting. So Anne Diane recruits a team of 7 students who are outcasts, and then she starts a club. But then now what? Like, what do they do together? So maybe some ideas for like book one of this idea of a series.
So Young, I actually have to get off the call right now.
Oh, okay.
I just made Rivka a co-host. Rivka, do you think you could wrap it up? This will be the last.
Totally.
One. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna leave you guys, and I hope I'm crossing my fingers that when I click end that it's not gonna end because Rivka is the co-host. Okay.
It should be fine. I've done it with SBWI many times. It'll be fine.
All right. Bye guys.